Welcome to 3countcommentaries. Today we're going to be talking about AEW Dynamite for March the 30th, 2022. We're also going to do some news and notes. We're going to be here a while because the notes are pretty lengthy, and I'm actually let me just say I have a lot to say about the news and notes. And during my AEW Dynamite review, we're going to have a conversation about our cherry lit pod goddess Toni Storm and the lack of fan reaction for her. And I find that distinctly problematic. But I don't necessarily blame her. But we'll get to that in a second. First, news and notes. Let's get to the one thing that I really don't have too much of a problem with, and that is Marco Stunt getting his walk-in papers. Apparently, Marco Stunt got the phone call that budget cuts have come to AEW and that his contract will not be renewed. He apparently hasn't been backstage at Dynamite in many, many months. And it was pretty much a matter of time. So there was not that big of a deal. No big loss for AEW. He hadn't been used in a long time. I saw some people say that a lot of the fans that AEW tried to sell us on at first, the Marco Stunts, the Joey Janela's, they're starting to really get rid of those guys. And I think smart folks would have seen that coming. You know, like, of course they were going to start getting rid of some of these guys. They kind of had to, you know. They're kind of changing the roster now, and they're right to do so. And Marco Stunt is no big loss. I mean, it is what it is. He's an indie guy. He's far too small to be taken seriously as a wrestler. He's a mascot kind of guy. You know, he's a 24/7 kind of guy. 24/7 title, hardcore title, that kind of thing. And since they didn't have anything like that in AEW, he was just there as a crash dummy. And there's something to be said about, you know, having useful crash dummies. I mean, you do need them. But, you know, they didn't need him. So, he's gone. That's fine. News and notes, part 2. MJF and Tony Khan reportedly have a heated conversation. A heated conversation. Why? Because MJF talks to Ariel Helwani without AEW's approval. Here's the story from Wrestling Inc. AEW President, CEO, General Manager, and Head of Creative God King Tony Khan reportedly had a heated discussion with MJF over the weekend. We noted last week MJF spoke with Ariel Helwani to discuss his interest in WWE, his contract status, Cody Rhodes' departure, his relationship with WWE executive Bruce Pritchard, and other topics. Now Fightful Select reports that Khan took issue with the interview being set up without notifying AEW's PR team. So the interview led to a conversation between Khan and MJF over the weekend, which reportedly left both men frustrated. It was noted that MJF's contract status has also caused the young top star to be frustrated as of late. MJF, during the interview, stated that his contract expires January 1st, 2024. All right, so this is an interesting situation here. The MJF contract thing, it's been going on for a few months now. I thought it was a work at first, but, you know, and it could still very well be. He's a smart guy, you know, so he's definitely gonna not sign a contract anytime soon. You know, he's gonna see what his value is to AEW. As the days go on, he's worked with Jericho and Moxley and Punk already. He's probably going to end up working with Danielson by the time his contract is up. He's definitely one of their top guys. He's their top original performer. As far as guys that they handpicked when they first started this thing, MJF is their top guy. You know, keeping him happy and keeping him signed, absolutely of the utmost importance. I'm kind of stupefied by this because, you know, I was told that AEW wrestlers had so much freedom and they could do whatever they wanted and all this kind of stuff. Now we see that their PR team has to give the cosign on their interviews, which is not a surprise because WWE has the same thing, but WWE is the evil corporation that controls your life. This is what I was told. You know, so WWE has that sort of barrier there that you have to go through them in order to get to the performer. Didn't know AEW had the same thing. I guess that's why, but we should have known that already because CM Punk, when he first signed, Tony Khan told him who he could talk to and who he can't. as he sat right next to him and says, "Oh yeah, he likes us. He's good." And I was like, they're creating their own bubble, just like WWE creates their own bubble. AEW creates their own bubble of people that you can talk to. Now, the follow up is that Ariel Helwani didn't ask anything that was out of bounds. Therefore, it would have been, all the topics would have been approved anyway, but they just felt like it was disrespectful to go around them in AEW. But it's not like he could do anything. What is he going to do? You know, he's going to fine MJF for talking to Ariel Helwani without permission? Come on. Anyway, very interesting note. Here's the last thing we want to discuss. I was going to give this its own video, but I decided not to. Seth Rollins talking about AEW, mentioning WWE. I'm not going to read the whole comment, but I'm going to read enough of it to give you the context. Then I'm going to give you my thoughts. So Seth Rollins says, "To me, it's one of those things where it's very useful. References you spoke of, like him mentioning Moxley or CM Punk mentioning WWE, are kind of different things. I didn't use the reference to Mox to talk down to anybody. I wasn't trying to diminish anyone's accomplishments. It wasn't like that. He's part of our story. Roman wouldn't be the same if it wasn't for Mox and I. The other side of that coin is the way that it's used by those guys. They can do whatever they want. I find it very tacky and lowbrow personally. I think it looks and reeks of desperation. I don't think it's anything on our television show that we need to go there and talk about those guys. They are doing their thing. They're doing it very well. We're happy for them." So, he says, "From my perspective, it's a step down for us to use it as an insult. That's my perspective. People may not share that opinion." So Seth Rollins is basically saying that AEW's constant usage of WWE, specifically in the negative, is tacky and reeks of desperation. This came out. I was going to do a news and notes about Eddie Kingston, who made a comment that he loves that fans are upset about his constant references to WWE. And yes, we know that they do say and do things to get attention. The number one argument to face in having this conversation, or trying to have an intelligent conversation about this subject, is the Monday Night Wars, when WCW and the WWF, they were going back and forth. I say you specifically are looking at a specific point in time, which was about 1995. 1995 and 1996. WCW had already existed before, WWF got into it with WCW. Find me a WWF reference to WCW before 1995. The only one that you'll ever find is Ric Flair holding up the big gold belt. That's it. You never hear Vince McMahon talking about WCW. You never see Vince McMahon even say anything about WCW. But WWE always is on the other side of this coin. If you go back into the archives way back, you will see, for instance, when I was watching Mid-South Wrestling, I knew when WrestleMania happened, 1985, because Bill Watts went on television, Mid-South Wrestling television, and absolutely ranted and raved about how WrestleMania was stupid, how they had a commentator in Mean Gene Okerlund wrestling at a house show or something like that, and he was so upset, and he was on TV rambling about how WWF is BS and is garbage and yada yada yada, constantly running those guys down. It was effusive. But I don't know if Jim Crockett Promotions did it a lot. I haven't really gotten that deep into their lore yet. I know ECW did it a lot. But ECW was literally the catfish of the wrestling business. They were the bottom feeders. Of course, they're going to mention Hulk Hogan and Ric Flair because that's the only way they can get attention. But WWE and WCW, they didn't really mention each other until they were going head to head. Until they were literally sniping at one another back and forth. It wasn't until they literally started going head to head that the knives came out. And then it was a lot of escalating. You got somebody giving away the results. So now we got parodies of the Nacho Man and Billionaire Ted. Then somebody is, letting a guy get in the ring and cut a promo unscripted about how terrible the other company is. WWF did that with Jeff Jarrett. You let Jeff Jarrett get in the ring and talk about how WCW sucks. And other guys have done it to WWE. And that became like most of the episodes of TNA Impact from like 06 to 2010. It was like every week it was a new guy popping out talking about how terrible his WWF experience was, and it was awful and it was stupid, and I'm glad I'm here and they care about me here, they love me, yada yada yada. It's the kind of thing that you see all the time. WWE does take their shots at smaller companies occasionally, usually in retaliation. But when just because another company exists doesn't mean that they always go at each other like this. This is something that people have found in a very, very small length of time. Again, the Attitude Era was literally between 1996 and 2001. That's 5 years. Both of those companies was around long before the Attitude Era started. You almost never hear WCW going on and on and on in a negative light about the WWF. You almost never hear that. It almost never happened. And if it did happen, it didn't happen nearly as much as it's happening now. So when you look at it, and you almost, like I said, the challenge, the gauntlet is laid down. Go to 1994 WWF and try to find a reference to WCW. Anywhere. 1993 WWF, 1992 or 1991 or 1990. WCW existed all of that time. You almost never saw WWF mention WCW at all on their show. They didn't let former WCW wrestlers that they signed and brought over, like Mean Mark Callis or the Diamond Stud or Oz. None of those guys got in the ring and talked about how WCW sucks. None of them did that. Now, what you might be able to find is maybe on the dirt sheets, like on the hotlines, there might have been some sniping back and forth. There might have been some sniping back and forth in the newspapers, specifically about things like blood. You know, I know Vince McMahon did have words for Ted Turner in reference to blood on WCW television. But as far as the constant back and forth, especially with using the talent as the voice of that kind of stuff, this is fairly new stuff, and it doesn't make any sense. And then that's the first argument that you almost run into. The second argument that you run into is WWF has done it before, or they do it too, and therefore it's okay. And I'm saying, like, you shouldn't have to go back 25 years. If it's really that bad, if it's really that, I remember one reference that WWF made that was negative about Ring of Honor. And it was Edge specifically, who told Matt Hardy to go back to Ring of Honor after Matt Hardy had come back to do the feud between, him and Edge over Lita. That was like the only time that WWF even mentioned Ring of Honor. Even when they started signing Ring of Honor guys, they didn't mention them. So this whole thing is not some kind of, this is the normal course of no, it's not. It's not normal. This shit is not normal. Like I say all the time, you occasionally, like, the very interesting thing, like, this was funny because it's abnormal. That, Pusha T did a commercial for Arby's fish sandwich, and he was dissing McDonald's. So he was dissing the filet of fish or whatever. Like, it was so abnormal that, of course, it stood out. You almost never see, in these commercials, there's Arby's take a lot of shots. Arby's does. But like McDonald's and Burger King, they take shots at each other, lightly, slightly, here and there. You very, very rarely get, heavy-handed dissing in the burger space, So when it does happen, it stands out. It jumps out at you. But AEW literally does this every week. In fact, if you look at this entire show, this very show that I'm about to talk about, there was a lot of WWE references. We future endeavored this guy. Wardlow doesn't exist in this universe anymore. We don't mention his name anymore. A lot of that stuff is just WWE stuff, very, very subtle and trying to be under the radar. We get it, man. Like, we get it. We understand you're not WWE. And yes, you want the attention. And it doesn't help that a lot of the AEW stuff that gets attention in the media is anti-WWE stuff. And so for some people, that's the only way they can even get attention is to diss WWE. But they believe, and a lot of them are politically motivated individuals, they believe in the concept of punching up and punching down. That if you're WWE, if you take a shot at somebody, you're punching down, you're being a bully. If you're AEW, you're punching up. That means you're being heroic, you're fighting back. It's like, nah, you look ridiculous. You look like an infant trying to fight an elephant. WWE doesn't want to play. Like, go away. We don't want to play. Move. Fuck on. It's like when kids want to play with you, want to wrestle. You don't want to wrestle. You just kind of push them away and they just keep coming back. That's kind of how this thing, it looks. You look like a little brother, a petulant little brother. And people don't want to be bothered with that. And people are kind of tired of that. They want you to build your own stars, for fuck's sake. Focus on building your own stars. Focus on your own product. And if WWE does acknowledge you, you have a right to respond if you get dissed, if you feel dissed. You have a right to respond. I'm cool with that. But you have to also understand this kind of thing is not normal. And a lot of fans seem to think so. It's like, no, you didn't see a lot of WCW sniping at WWF before the Attitude Era really kicked off, before the Monday Night Wars really started. And that shit didn't start till 1995. WCW already existed for 5 or 6 years before that. So it is what it is. So there was something else I wanted to add to that, but I can't think of it. Yes. And now it's come to me. I forget who said this, but they said, like, WWE did make these comments, billionaire tech skids and all that kind of stuff. And I say, if I tell some junior of mine, I walk up to the kid and I say, man, stealing is wrong. Stealing is very bad. You shouldn't steal. And then they say, well, Mongo, didn't you used to shoplift when you were a kid? When you were 10 years old, didn't you steal from the store? I heard about you used to steal Butterfingers and Paydays from the store. So don't tell me not to steal. It's like, what the fuck? What the hell are you talking about? I was 10 years old. This shit was over 20 years ago. Don't tell me about no shit that's 30 years old. Cause my values do change. My values are allowed to evolve. So the evolution of things have allowed you to say, that was then, this is now. I don't give a fuck what happened 30 years ago. Oh, they made fun of Ted Turner 30 years ago. So what? You act like they was making fun of Dixie Carter when she was on TV. They never did that shit. They didn't really start taking shots at AEW until you started hearing a lot about it. And then they will, of course, it's a 2-for-1 deal. For every one shot WWE gives, AEW has already thrown 5 or 6. Like the blood and guts thing. Vince McMahon is asked about blood and guts. AEW not only talks about blood and guts literally all the time, but then they wanted to have a match called the blood and guts match. Okay, you can retaliate because Vince said, oh, we're not going to do the blood and guts thing. That's fine. But shit, that's one comment after you've made 50 fucking comments. So let's smooth this stuff out. None of the arguments make any sense. All I can say is you can't tell people what to do. AEW is going to do what they want. The wrestlers are going to do what they want to do. If they want to be known as the guys who diss WWE, let them do it. It's not going to help them in the long term because apparently it does nothing but put off some people who want to give it a chance. And you're not doing nothing but creating a bubble around yourself because some people want to watch AEW Dynamite and they don't want to be inundated with anti-WWE propaganda. I don't give a fuck about what you think about WWE. You don't work there. I don't care. Or if you did work there, you don't work there now. So I don't care. Focus on putting over the guy across the ring. And nothing bothered me more than the random bringing up of The Miz. Like when CM Punk and MJF is in the ring talking about The Miz. I'm like, what the fuck are they talking about The Miz for? Like I don't know. Like I don't understand this. Like, why are they talking about The Miz? It was just so weird. It's so weird and it's so off-putting. Please don't do that. Please don't do that. All right, almost 20 minutes of news and notes. Now we finally have got to get into the review. AEW Dynamite starts with CM Punk versus Max Caster. And of course, Max Caster gave us a Willard Smith joke. It was lame. He also gave a Hunter Biden joke, which I thought was actually okay. He said that CM Punk's movies would be the only way he goes to sleep, which I thought was funny. And then he said that he's going to make him crap his pants like a Z-Pack. Also very interesting, because we know CM Punk has told that story 100 times of him shitting himself because he was given Z-Packs in WWE. Of course, CM Punk defeats Max Caster. They love giving lengthy matches to guys who can't win, but CM Punk wins. He then once again does the belt motion. Tony Schiavone then, in very stupid fashion, asks him what that means. And CM Punk's like, come on, you're a smart guy. You're not a moron, Tony. You know what it means when a guy does the old belt motion, and I don't see it that much anymore. Which is, kind of good. Then CM Punk actually cut a good promo where he says that, there's a lot of gray in my beard, and before my time is done in AEW, there's going to be more gray in my beard. I got some scars on my forehead, and before my time is done in AEW, I'm going to have more scars on my forehead. And he says, I don't know who the world champion is going to be, but before my time is up in AEW, I will be the AEW world champion. I like that. Very to the point. I like the way he put things together, the repetition. It was very good. Give him credit. Thumbs up to CM Punk. MJF and FTR is hanging out with smart Mark Sterling, and I don't understand that anymore. MJF says that they don't use Wardlow's name. He doesn't exist in this universe anymore. He then had people putting up signs saying that Wardlow is not welcome, I think, or some kind of weird signs that he had Mark Sterling put up. Dax Harwood then said that he, Max is his friend, but Wardlow is his friend too. He doesn't want to be mixed up in this. MJF says, oh, look, man, you don't have to, we're not asking you to do that. You guys aren't just my friends. You guys are my family. And Wardlow used to shit talk you guys all the time. But, that's neither here nor there. Again, we don't talk about Wardlow. FTR then goes out there for their match. They defeat the Gun Club. Wardlow interrupts the match by coming to the building. This is after MJF has said that he had banned Wardlow from the building. And they do a fight scene out of a movie where Wardlow just appears and each security guard runs up on him one at a time to get beaten up and thrown to the side. So it's like 4 or 5 security guards. He then gets into the crowd area, and the crowd is, going kind of crazy because they didn't expect to see him that night. And then MJF is on commentary. FTR's in the ring. These guys are looking to sort of mix it up, then MJF kind of calls for more security, and security finally escorts Wardlow back out of the building. So FTR ends up beating the Gun Club with the big rig, because of course they do. Then MJF and Dax Harwood began to debate and argue and get very loud with one another about Wardlow and his involvement in this match and his distraction and what is going on with this guy. And MJF is trying to smooth things over. Hey, it's no big deal. Don't worry about it. You guys are great. He lifts their hands in the air. This is the best tag team in the world. You guys are awesome. You guys rule. This was fine. Of course, I could have done without the FTR versus Gun Club match. I mean, who gives a damn about the Gun Club? Really? Come on, man. FTR later says that they get accused of taking themselves too seriously, but of course they take this seriously because this is all they ever wanted to do. And they came to AEW to build a reputation, and they refused to be second best to anyone. They challenged the Young Bucks to another match, FTR versus Young Bucks 2, to see who is the better team. I truly do love FTR. They're tremendous. They are the baby faces now. I like that the Pinnacle is going to be separating. It is inevitable for them to separate. It's just nothing else that you could possibly do in a situation where Wardlow is not going to be the reason they break up. It's going to be because MJF is an absolute shitheel, and FTR doesn't want to be, don't want to deal with that. So it ought to be nice. And, they're finally going to have the rematch with the Young Bucks. I guess they're going to have one match a year. Okay, whatever. I would like for them to have more story going into that match, which is always lacking in AEW, is the amount of story that they need to have. Instead of putting a lot of story on this Young Bucks FTR thing, we're just going to have, hey, how about you guys just face us? And they're going to be like, of course, yeah, sure, why not? Whatever. I do want to realize I do want to question why is Mark Sterling hanging around him. I just don't like that guy. He's smarmy. Of course, MJF with his WWE references about how Wardlow doesn't exist in this universe and we don't say his name because that's how WWE operates. You know, when they send people home, when people are fired, they don't exist. They get, you know, they very, very, very rarely even mention those people again. You know, I don't see what would be the purpose of mentioning people who aren't there. You know, it's like, did you consistently talk about people who aren't around? You know, like it's awkward when WWE goes out of their way to not mention people. You know, that's awkward. But most of the time, there's no reason for them to ever come up. You know, there's very rarely any desire to even bring that guy up. Like sometimes when they mention legends, like, yo, I want to be the greatest Intercontinental Champion of all time. I want to be like Ricky Steamboat. I want to be like Razor Ramon. I want to be like yada, yada, yada. They're not going to go out of their way to mention some guy who just left 2 weeks ago, you know, unless there's a reason for it. You know, we've already talked about this though, so we don't need to go into it again. All right, Jay Lethal was defeated by Jon Moxley in the Death Rider. I really enjoyed this match. This match was actually good. It also had some story in it, as Jon Moxley smacked Jay Lethal in the match and challenged him to fight back. And in typical indie wrestler fashion, it became throwing forearms at each other. Instead of guys throwing punches, they throw forearms. That's what they do. Jon Moxley was biting him at one point. And we see that Moxley was playing the heel. He was doing whatever it takes. He was willing to fight dirty. He's willing to bite. He's willing to smack. He's willing to cut some corners. Where Jay Lethal was playing it safe. He was being a clean wrestler. He's trying to out-wrestle Moxley and was successfully doing so for the most part. Moxley hits the paradigm shift for the pin, and then after the match, offers his hand to Jay Lethal, who shakes it, even though he was sort of reluctant. He reluctantly shook it. Good. Maybe Jay Lethal would join the group. You know, maybe, hopefully. Can we hope that Jay Lethal does something, anything on this show? I'm outside of losing. Of course, he has a spot in the middle of the ring with his shoulders pinned. That's always a spot for him. But for Christ's sake, can we get the guy to do something? And can we please move away from this the Macho Man thing? You know, AEW just likes to freeze people in amber. God damn. The TNA Black Machismo thing was so long ago. And it's almost like, and you even see AEW fans who, of course, hate Jay Lethal because he was accused of sexual assault or sexual harassment by Kelly Klein. I wonder where that went, how that case goes. And I wonder if that case has anything to do with Ring of Honor going out of business. I wasn't even thinking about that until just now. I didn't think about that until just this moment. I wonder if, you know, because they was getting sued by Joey Mercury and Kelly Klein, and I didn't hear that much about that case. I wonder what's happening with that case now that Tony Khan owns Ring of Honor. I'm interested. Anyway, Jay Lethal has done so much in his career, and yet he's being limited to Black Machismo, and that's bullshit. He did a lot of stuff. He did so much stuff other than Black Machismo. Why are he has this remix of the Macho Man theme. It's like, it's so corny. And AEW's fans think that this is his idea. It's like, no, this is what Tony Khan thinks that you know this guy from. You know, they think you only know him because he was Black Machismo for a couple of weeks or a month or a year or so in TNA. And you don't remember he did anything else. It's like, but at the same time, he bought Ring of Honor and knows that Jay Lethal was doing the foundation gimmick, at least for the last year, and was doing something else. What was it called? He was with Truth Martini, and I forget what they were doing, what it was called. But he was doing completely different shit. He wasn't doing Black Machismo. You know, that's when he was a kid. He was a kid doing Black Machismo. He grew out of that. So why is this guy now almost 40 and you putting him back in that box? That's bullshit. Let this guy out of that box, man. You know, let him do something else. And it seems like they might actually be letting him do something else. So I'm going to give it some time. Jay Lethal is not looking very good, though. They hoeing him, if we're being honest. Okay, Hobbs and Lee. So I decide I'm not gonna do a review of Rampage, and they're gonna have Powerhouse Hobbs and Keith Lee on the card. Okie dokie. Sure, whatever. So Powerhouse Hobbs says that Keith Lee was a pain in his ass before he even got there, because all he kept hearing is "bask in my glory" and Keith Lee this and Keith Lee's that, and he said you could bask in kissing my ass and you can bask in this defeat. Keith Lee didn't have much to say, but he says, "Mr. Hobbs, it has occurred to me that you are going to step to me like a man and challenge me to a one-on-one contest of fisticuffs and grunts and groans. Mr. Hobbs, you shall bask in my glory." I'm like, okay, sure, whatever. There. This Keith Lee thing, it's not quite doing what it's supposed to do, is it? I don't think anybody envisioned Keith Lee's run in AEW being just him on Dark wrestling randos, and then him having one big match with Powerhouse Hobbs and it not getting time on Dynamite. I mean, again, let's look at this. We had Wheeler Yuta. We had the Gun Club. We had Max Caster. We had the Bunny. All of them got on this show. Keith Lee and Powerhouse Hobbs, no. You're not allowed to have that actual, probably pretty good match on Dynamite. We're going to push that back to Rampage at 10 o'clock at night on a Friday. This guy booking this show. Booker of the Year. Promoter of the Year. If you say so, man. If you say so. All right, so the Jericho Appreciation Society, they're out there. And Jericho, I like this line. A lot of the WWF stuff I don't really care for, but I like this. Jericho says that the Jericho Appreciation Society is a revolutionary force in sports and entertainment. Which is, of course, a wonderful parody of the WWF's, the New Generation era, the WWF, the World Wrestling Federation. The revolutionary force in sports and entertainment. Fantastic stuff. I'll give Jericho a thumbs up on that one. That one was actually pretty good. Then he starts talking about all these guys who are from other companies and all these guys from all these other rosters who want to join the Jericho Appreciation Society. None. There's 5 of them and there will always be 5. You can't go. There will be no more GFY. He's still trying to get that over. Please stop. Daniel Garcia then says that they future endeavored the Dark Order, Santana and Ortiz. Then Jake Hager spoke. And no, wait, the fat guy, the fat head dude. Take a peek. Take a peek. They ain't coming back. Take a peek. And he just kept pulling back that curtain, saying that, Santana and Ortiz and all these guys are not coming back. He's so hyperactive. He's so manic. It's hilarious. And they kept wanting him to pull the curtain back so they could see that nobody was there. Then Jake Hager spoke. And he says, you need to get it through your mind. They're not coming back. And then as soon as he said that, they came back, of course. Santana Ortiz and Eddie Kingston jumped them up, beat them up. This lasted forever. This was a fight scene that lasted forever. Because there's more members of the Jericho Appreciation Society, they was able to take control. And it turned into a wild brawl. Kingston, Santana, and Ortiz got beat up. Then Daniel Garcia puts Eddie Kingston in a sharpshooter. And while he's in the sharpshooter, Jericho is just rat-a-tat-tatting across Eddie Kingston's back with a baseball bat. And I'm just looking at this. And I'm like, he's hit this guy like 80 times with this bat. His bat should be broken. I saw Casino. All right? I love Casino. I saw Nicky Santoro get hit in the head with a bat one time. Blood everywhere. By the time they hit him 5 or 6 times with the bat, he couldn't breathe. He couldn't get up. That's how wrestling should look. I'm sorry. I know it's not going to be as great as Casino because the guys aren't that good of an actor. But I'm really getting kind of perturbed by guys getting hit with metal weapons 100 times. I'm just kind of like, okay, How many times can you really hit a guy with a baseball bat? I've been hit with baseball bats. It ain't fun. All right? It should take one to put you down. By the second time, if you really get hit hard, you should be spitting up something. You know, if they did like a blood pill in the mouth of Eddie Kingston or something like that, and he was still fighting. Like, that was the weird thing. Like, because it went on so long, he was still being held by his arms and everything. He was still kicking and, you know, trying to fight. And I was like, under normal circumstances, what Eddie Kingston is doing is perfectly fine. Like, you should continue to struggle until the knockout blow comes. You know, like you get hit in the head with the sledgehammer or whatever, and then you go down and you stay down. Okay. But I think this was after he got hit with the bat like 6 times. It's like he was in the sharpshooter. He got hit with the bat like 100 times. He should be finished. He shouldn't be moving. You know, like, he should be done. The fight should be taken out of him. And they should move on to the next guy. You know, but this went on so long. And I was just like, oh my God, how long could you possibly pound on these dudes? This took forever. This was very, very bad. It's very bad. So it is what it is. I like Kingston with Santana and Ortiz. I think that's great. I think that's a great pairing. Not a fan of the Jericho Appreciation Society. I don't like the guys that are in it. Jericho rules though. Jericho is very good for obvious reasons. So Jade Cargill is with Smart Mark Sterling. I don't know why this guy still exists. And they have chosen her 30th opponent for her match. And it is Leva Bates, the librarian. And Jade Cargill is like, what? What is that? What is this? And Sterling's like, hey, she's great. You know, we narrowed it down to 2 opponents. One was Leva Bates. I think she's the best choice. And then Jade Cargill says, what about the other one? And Mark Sterling says, you know, covering his mouth. And she's like, what? She's like, Marina Shafir. And then he says, oh, she's an MMA fighter, yada, yada. And Jade Cargill was like, fuck it, it's her. All right, we'll do Marina Shafir. And she kind of no-sells the whole Marina Shafir is an MMA fighter, all that kind of stuff. Now, apparently they have officially assigned Marina Shafir too. They did a vignette for her earlier in the episode to basically show that she has, you know, been doing something. Marina Shafir is the wife of Roderick Strong. She was on NXT for a long time. They really didn't do anything with her in NXT. So this is kind of like a fresh start for her. She was just on the roster for a long time. She occasionally did some stuff with Shayna Baszler, but they never really brought her up to the main roster. And then they never really did anything with the 4 Horsewomen concept outside of, the occasional picture. I think they might have done it. Maybe a 6-man tag or something when they was hanging out with Shayna Baszler that time, but that was about it. They didn't really get a chance to show Marina Shafir could do anything. So, Marina Shafir is going to be the opponent for Jade Cargill. I'm not sure. I expect Jade Cargill to win, but they was actually putting over Marina Shafir like she actually had a chance. And I like that Mark Sterling is kind of concerned about Marina Shafir's background with her being an MMA fighter and all that kind of stuff. I like that. I also like that he's playing like, he's like Mickey from Rocky, you know, she'll murder your rock. You know, he's trying to protect his golden goose. He don't want to give her too many difficult opponents. So he's going to give her an easy one. You know, Leva Bates would have been easy, right? She's going to get a random TBS title match. You know, I haven't seen that brought on TV this year, but she's going to get a title match, and, you know, Leva Bates got screwed. So, you know, whatever. I don't see the point of this, but it is what it is, and Marina Shafir is going to get signed, and if she wins, that'd be a surprise. But I don't think that'll happen, though. All right, Bryan Danielson defeated Wheeler Yuta. There was some story in this match, too, as Wheeler Yuta fired off some elbows on Bryan Danielson, just elbowing them all in the head and neck. It was pretty wild. Showed some nice intensity there, and it was a great hope spot. But this match went entirely too long. I actually lost interest in the show by this point. This was only the 4th match on the show. And I was already kind of mentally checked out. I was like, all right. They're just going to have these 10-minute jobber matches. We're just stuck in limbo at this point. Danielson wins by absolutely destroying Wheeler Yuta by stomping him in the head and giving him the Gotch-style power driver and then put him in the label lock. He absolutely destroyed this kid. I'm guessing this is all part of Wheeler Yuta's metamorphosis to whatever he's going to be in the Combat Club or whatever. So, we're going to skip the Darby and Andrade vignette. We'll come back to it. The Undisputed Elite. This was so embarrassing. Everything about this made me so mad. Oh, God. I am embarrassed at how pissed off this made me. So, first, Cole says that Hangman and Jurassic Express aren't there. They're embarrassed because they took the belts from them. And it says, but you can't steal what are rightfully yours, and these titles rightfully belong to them. They earned them. So they just out there with tape on the titles that say Adam Cole on the tape and Kyle O'Reilly on the tape and Bobby Fish on the tape. I'm like, oh my God, it's so corny. AEW needs a new era. They need new guys. Kyle O'Reilly gets on the microphone, and even the most ardent, the most strident, the most flag-waving AEW fans with blue check marks on the Twitter machine, even they heard Kyle O'Reilly's promo and was like, what the fuck was that? It was so bad. It was a whole bowl of yikes with marshmallows. It was that bad. This was awful. It was awful. So then Bobby Fish comes in and try to save it, saying that he'll put the resume of Red Dragon up against anybody. They're the three baddest dudes in AEW. And then they proved that by getting summarily beat up by Hangman Page, who drove out there in a Tesla with Longhorns on it. And we're going to talk about that in a moment. He comes down to the ring and he proceeds to beat up all three of them. And then there was some manner of escape was trying to be happen. And then Jurassic Express came out there with Christian and they beat him up. And they took their belts back, and the Undisputed Elite, which is their new name now, they fled the scene, got out of there. They lost their titles. They were taken from them. I was like, this is so bad. This was so corny. Again, everything that features the world title feels mid-card as fuck. This feels mid-card as hell. It's so embarrassing. This sucks so bad. The electric car. Let's talk about this, man. Because I never seen a country boy, a cowboy, that didn't own a pickup truck. When I spend time down in North Carolina, sometime in Indiana, somewhere near the cornfields. I was spent some time down in Mississippi, some Tennessee, seeing some places. I'd never seen electric cars. Anybody that I've seen that might be considered a cowboy would never own an electric car. If you are a cowboy, you have to move things. And if you're moving things, you need room. You need a pickup truck, a van or something. He shows up in this $100,000 car that he put cow horns on, or long horns on, bull horns. Because cows don't have, they have small horns, maybe. This is absolutely abysmal. And it says a lot about his character. Not only does it separate Hangman Page, who's supposed to be a man of the people, it separates him from everybody else because he's driving an electric car. Most people in the United States cannot afford an electric car. That's the first problem. The second problem is it clashes with his cowboy image. These Tesla cars are basically spaceships. Why the fuck would he need to have an electric car? He's a cowboy. He's a cowboy. He should have a pickup. He's supposed to be a country boy. He should have a pickup truck. Oh, that's a stereotype, Mongo. That's not true. People want to see themselves reflected. If you're going to say you're a cowboy and you're doing cowboy shit, you want to rock around with a bandana on, where does the electric vehicle come from? Why would you have an electric vehicle? I don't get that. That's fucking with me. And it clashes so much with his everyman persona. That's some shit that you would see like an Alberto Del Rio style character. Somebody who's supposed to be fabulously wealthy, rich, and powerful, like Andrade. If he had like a Tesla, that would be cool. Because his character is all about his money. His character is all about his wealth. Him being a businessman and all that kind of stuff. It would make perfect sense for him to have a Tesla. But Hangman Page driving a Tesla? Oh, that's just virtue signaling, dog. It's just like, oh yes, we have to show that Hangman Page cares about the environment. He's driving a Tesla. Like, oh God, bro. This is awful, man. This is awful. It's a stupid expensive car. No doubt it was rented. But it's not, that's not the point. The point is it clashed so much with his character that you're out of touch. That's the best way to put it. You know, you're out of touch with your audience. Most people look at Teslas and those kinds of things as things that they can never afford, and they will never afford, you know, because electric cars they're just too expensive. So for you to be driving an electric car, it says that you're basically stunting on the audience. You know, that's the first thing. Second thing is you're virtue signaling about the environment. Third is you're clashing with your character. Your character is supposed to be a cowboy, not some yuppie from New York City or some yuppie from San Francisco. If that's who you are, then just be that. You know, stop talking about cowboy shit. Stop wearing bandanas and talking about you're the hangman and all that shit. Just go be some Starbucks drinking, Birkenstock wearing weirdo from, you know, Cupertino, California. Just be that guy. Because that's who you are. Just go be that guy. You know, this is cornball behavior. Fix it. And I could tell this was probably a Tony Khan idea. He looked really cool driving in an electric car. Like, this motherfucker's a big ass, you know, go-kart. It's not a fucking, it's a go-kart. Anyway, Thunder Rosa comes out there. She cuts the best promo of her life. And all it took was for her to slow down. She still stumbled here and there, but it was the best promo she's ever cut. She says she's the first Mexican-born women's champion and the first to ever do this, the first Mexican-born women's champion ever in wrestling. Then says that she wanted to be the face of all women's wrestling. Then she said that pillars get knocked down. I want to be a foundation. Foundations don't get knocked down. I thought that was great. That was a great line. Fantastic line. A cheap shot at Britt Baker, who calls herself a pillar. A cheap shot at all the guys who call themselves pillars. She's saying, no, I am a foundation. You know, foundations are under your feet, though. You stand on foundations. You know, so that was very good. I like that. So this is the best promo she's ever cut. I have also said in previous videos that people are dropping the ball when it comes to Mexican female wrestlers. I'll probably only talk about this subject when it comes up in terms of AAA, when I do AAA reviews, which are, you know, very, very occasional. A lot of the female wrestlers are of Mexican descent are not as brought in as the Japanese women. And they need to be, you know. I don't remember seeing too many. There's some really good female Mexican wrestlers that don't get a chance, you know. So I'll say one thing: Thunder Rosa is really good. This was the best promo she's ever cut, and it was still a little too much, and she still kind of botched it here and there. The response to this came from Nyla Rose and Vicky Guerrero, and the audio was cutting out during Vicky's promo, and then by the time Nyla Rose was done, I wish that the audio had never come back. Nyla Rose said something about, I'm the real foundation. Day one, bitch. Or something like that. I'm kind of like, what in the hell? Why did this motherfucker become Rikishi all of a sudden? And nah, man. These people don't need to talk ever again. All right, can we, of all the people who are on this show and they never talk, can Nyla Rose be one of them? You know, I mean, I'm pretty sure there's been some people that have been on this show that they probably have never cut a promo. Nyla Rose needs to be one of them. She needs to be one of them people that never cut a promo on this show. That was so bad. All right, so now we got to talk about the thing that you all been waiting for. The debut of our cherry lit Paul goddess, Toni Storm. Toni Storm was the opponent for the Bunny for the Owen Hart Foundation qualifying tournament or whatever the hell. Okie dokie. Toni Storm goes out there. She wrestles a match with the Bunny. She wins. She wins with Storm Zero, which is, I guess, a packaged power driver now. She came out to a decent reaction, and then the crowd immediately died. Now, I'm looking at the hard cam side. So, hard cam side, There's just people sitting there. It's like a video game. They're not moving. I don't think anybody sneezed during this entire segment. They're just sitting there. I'm hearing, let's go, Tony. Let's go, Tony. Yay, Tony. And it's all off screen. I'm looking at the people in the audience. I'm looking at the hard cam. I'm not seeing anybody move. I'm not seeing anybody blink. I'm not seeing, she's not even getting golf claps. And I was just getting concerned. I was like, oh my, what is going on? What is happening here? They don't know who she is, or do they not care? You know, and they was out there working their asses off, trying to anyway. And, you know, you can't work Toni Storm's ass off, you know. Hey, you be working a long time, you know. You need a luncheon for that. Talk about a late lunch. Talk about a long lunch. Better become more acquainted with brunches. You be there a long time trying to work that ass off. Anyway, the Bunny and Toni Storm got almost no reaction. And then she wins the match, and it was kind of like, okay, she won. And I was like, oh no. Oh no. This was a flop. This was a flop. Nobody cared. And yes, it might have been a small section of people who were making a lot of noise. And I'm pretty sure it was. There's probably enough people that was making noise that actually cared. But by and large, I don't think she impressed anybody. And I was like, oh, these people, this is sad. And maybe it's because she came out there in long pants and she was dressed like Kevin Nash in 96. Maybe that's what it was. I don't know what it was, but she got almost no reaction, and I was embarrassed for her because she wrestled in almost absolute silence, with the exception of, you know, at the start of the match, obviously there was people making noise, and then even they died down. And by the time the match really got started, there was almost nothing. I was like, ooh, this is not good. This ain't good. Now, I'm going to blame AEW for this because they absolutely insist on having people immediately debut without any buildup. No buildup whatsoever. And you have to build people up, man. Even WWE they built her up when she came in. You know, even when they didn't do anything with her immediately, there was video packages of Toni Storm coming soon to SmackDown, you know, to give people an idea of who she was and what she looked like and, you know, what kind of moves that she did and that kind of stuff. You know, you could have other people putting her over on commentary, have other people cut promos on her about how she, you know, yada, yada, yada. It's like the only people that were really kind of excited to see her were the blue check marks on Twitter and a couple of people in the crowd. A couple. Maybe 200 to 300 out of maybe 5,000 or 6,000 that might have been there. It's like, this is AEW's fault. They have to actually work to get over. See, there's the thing, and it's going to be kind of screwed up. Toni Storm wasn't in WWE long enough, you know. And then also she worked her match, and then they went off and did something else. There was no promo. There was no big, you know, big to do about her being there. They didn't treat her like a big star. She got treated like a surprise wrestler who was going to wrestle a couple of matches on this show and then hit elevation, hit dark. And I've been talking to a lot of these guys, a lot of these dirt sheet writers, you know, and they've been WWE dropped the ball with Toni Storm. And look, I get it, man. You know, I know that it's just kind of, that's how people are. Toni Storm should have been a big star. There was a lot of opportunity there. You know, Raj Giri of Wrestling Inc. She was on the roster for 4 years before they finally did something. Then when she was on the main roster, she got treated like a dork. She got hit in the face with a pie. I was like, oh, so that's how it is. You know, we got hit in the face with a pie. Now all of a sudden I quit my job. I'm like, okay. You know, what if Roman Reigns would have had that mentality? You know, what if Roman Reigns would have had the mentality that I'm going to quit because I'm not doing something I want to do right now? You know, look, I'm all for people chasing their own happiness, and she's not the one complaining. So I'm not talking about her specifically or going after her. there's a lot of the people who are, she left a toxic work environment. We don't know what the hell happened. I don't know what happened. And I don't care to know. All I can tell you is she was on the main roster, a few months? They took her off TV for a little while. She was chilling in catering. She didn't like that. And then when they put her on TV, she wasn't on TV regular enough. And then by the time she quit, she was working with Charlotte. She was cutting promos on Charlotte. She was doing dueling promos with Charlotte. She was hitting Charlotte in the face with pies. And they were working the house show loop, and then she quit. So I'm like, we don't know what was going to happen. Or she should have been brought up to the main roster sooner. I'm like, they fired a bunch of people, and there's still some people injured when they brought her on. If she would have had to compete for real estate with a full roster before WWE had released all of those people, before they released Lana and the Iconics and Nia Jax and all the people they were actually using, because they were investing a lot of time in Lana and the Iconics and Nia Jax and Mickie James and all them. Well, Mickie James not so much. And the Iconics not so much once they got separated. But they were pillars and people that were on the show regularly. She barely could stand out on a, sort of paper thin SmackDown roster. They were kind of trying to find a place to fit her in and work her character and work her gimmick and everything. And then they tweaked it. It was a wild child of the 80s, and then they kind of drop that, and they changed it to something else, to her, being an antagonist to Charlotte. But she didn't even get a chance to process to work. She basically just up and quit. So now I'm saying, all right, she's not really that well known. If you're trying to connect to the WWE audience, because she's such a big star, she was in Stardom. I was like, nobody cares. Nobody cares she was in Stardom, bro. That's the thing. These people just think that you can just throw out names, and she wrestled Yamazaki Suzuki or whatever the fuck, and people are going to be like, I had no idea. She's a huge star now. No, that's not how people think. Nobody thinks like that. Nobody cares who she worked with in Japan in the middle of nowhere when she was 19 or some shit. This is a completely different world now. It is up to you to get her over. They should have waited. They should have waited. They should have just announced Toni Storm was signing to AEW and started doing vignettes. I've been talking about this again and again and again. AEW needs to stop with the fucking surprises, quote unquote. Just tell people what's going to happen. Tell them Toni Storm is going to be in the Owen Hart tournament, but you don't know who her opponent is going to be. She's going to cut promos. She's going to tell everybody who she is and what she's done and where she's coming from and why she wants to win this tournament and what it means to her and all this kind of stuff. We're going to let it all hang out. We're going to let it all out there so that when she actually does come out, everybody knows who the fuck she is. Rather than, surprise, here's a girl you don't know who she is. Because everybody's going to be like, I don't follow fucking Japanese wrestling. I didn't watch NXT UK. I saw her on NXT 2 or 3 times. I don't know. She was on SmackDown once or twice. It's like you're not bringing in somebody that like Jeff Hardy. He's a big deal. You can keep him a secret and everybody like, I know Jeff Hardy. I know who he is. With Toni Storm, you have to do the groundwork. With people who nobody knows, you have to do the groundwork. You have to actually get your hands dirty, making vignettes, shooting promos, coming up with characters, coming up with motivations, and putting them in angles and doing stuff. How many times could they continue to do this and continue to debut people in fucked up segments, and then they get wins over Maddie Ranowski tier opponents that nobody gives a fuck about, all these Griff Garrisons and all this other bullshit, and then they just end up on Rampage or fucking Dark. This is AEW, man. This sucks. I would much rather be in a promo segment with Charlotte, getting hit in the face with pies, because at least people see me, rather than winning matches on a show that nobody gives a fuck about, because that's exactly where she's going. If this fan reaction does not change, she's going to go the Ruby Soho route. She's going to be like a hot dog down a hallway. It's not going to mean a fucking thing. Every signing is a game changer. Every signing is a big signing. Everybody is going to fix this division. The division, oh, they needed her so much. She's going to be such a shot in the arm. The game has changed. Talk to me in 6 months. Because I saw Ruby Soho. They made a big deal out of her. Where did she end up? She's not even on TV anymore. They have to do better with debuting people. Do vignettes. Do vignettes. Stop assuming that everybody knows everything. You have to stop doing that. It seems silly. You got to do the work. You know, I know that he's just so used to throwing money at things. You can't throw money at getting people to like somebody. It is very, very hard to get people to like somebody. There's no magic rules in order to do this. But you have to actually do the work. You have to get people to like somebody. That's very, very hard. That's the business that you're in. You're in the business of selling personalities. Selling people on the idea that this person is actually very good. This person is super talented. Should have licensed out all of her material. I mean, you work with Stardom and all the motherfuckers anyway, right? License the material, show some vignettes. Come on, man. They're botching the shit out of this, man. And Toni Storm she's a layup. And that's the one thing Raj Giri was right. Toni Storm should have been an easy success story for WWE. It should have been very easy. The only problem we're going to have here is, what is her personality? You know, and that was what she struggled with in NXT. It was coming up with a persona, a personality, a voice. That's always going to be her problem. And if you're going to say, well, we're just not going to use that. We're just going to, you know, put her in the ring and let her wrestle. She's going to wrestle it out. People are just going to yawn and go to sleep. People are going to yawn and start calling for commercials. They're going to be begging you to go to commercials so they can go to the bathroom or something like that. You know, you got to sell personalities. You got to sell conflict. You got to sell story. At least tell us something about her. You just brought her out here cold as shit. And only people who cared are the people who knew she was coming already. And that's another thing. Like, it wasn't like it was a surprise. That's the thing about AEW and their signings. Their signings aren't surprises. We know the moment somebody gets their release, their walking papers from WWE, whether they quit or whether they get fired, they're just going over to AEW. We were just counting the minutes at that point. It's not like Toni Storm is like, oh my God, she was out of the business. It's like, no, she waited out her 90 days. Her 90 days literally ended last Wednesday. So she waited 1 week. We knew what she was doing. You could have just started preparing everybody, talking about, you know, what's going on and what's happening and all this kind of stuff. You could take your time. Fuck. And you got her out there looking bad. Like our chairlit Paul Goddess. But I have faith in him. I got faith in old Thunder Thighs. She gonna get it. I hope she get it. I don't want her to go off TV again. I would be so sad if the only way you could look at her is on stolen, leaked nudes and OnlyFans accounts. That'd be very bad. She worked for a match and she won, so of course she won. She was wrestling the bunny. The bunny sucks. So main event time. Darby Allin versus Andrade El Idolo. So they had a promo, so you know it was funny. Andrade, I will slap some sense into you. It's show me who you are, because you know who I am. Look at me. I'm Andrade El Idolo. And Darby Allin just sounds like, you know, his soul got sucked out of in a vacuum or something. Drop the group. Drop the money. Fight me like a man. Oh my God. Ugh. It's not like he walks through graveyards and just has like no charisma, like no personality whatsoever. Jesus. So they have this match, and Andrade is absolutely dead set on killing Darby Allin at some point during this match. He did a back body drop on this guy. He did a full flip and landed on his face. I'm like, what on earth? And this was after he murdered him with a tope suicida or something like that over the top rope. So Andrade really was getting his shit in. He gorilla slapped him too. I mean, my God, it was such a slap. It was one hell of a slap. Knocked Darby Allin right on his ass. It was a hard-hitting match. I didn't hate it. Jose would march down to the ring, and then Sting came down there and knocked down Jose. Then the Butcher and the Blade came down there to beat up on Sting, and then the Hardy Boys came out there. Then Andrade hit his finish, the weird-looking armbar DDT, and pinned Darby Allin. I was shocked to see Darby lose. I honestly was. So Andrade wins, and there was a big scrum, big fight with Andrade and his boys winning the fight as we were going off the air. At least I think so. Maybe the Hardys turned everything around and chased them off. Oh yeah, because they did. Jeff Hardy did a swanton bomb onto one of the members of Private Party, and he landed with his full body weight on that kid. I mean, Jesus. It's like he dropped a medicine ball from the Sears Tower on this fucking kid's rib cage. I was like, wow. I get it. You're Jeff Hardy. You know, fuck it. But, Jesus, your whole body on this kid? the whole of your body? I'm pretty sure the kid's such a mark. He probably like, go ahead, man. Go ahead and do your thing. Just don't send me to the hospital, bro. Jeff trying hard to put these kids on the IR. So they announced that next week the Hardy Boys will be in a tables match against Butcher and the Blade, because the Hardy Boys cannot have a normal tag team match, apparently. They apparently are brought in to just do tables matches and ladders matches and that kind of shit. That just tells me that Tony Khan, again, he's putting people back in the box. You know, it's a concept that's called last known good. When was the last time something that is not working? When last time it did work? And the last time that the Hardy Boys really, really worked is when you put them in environments like ladder matches, table matches, and stuff like that. They weren't really, again, you know, I've asked people to give me a Hardy Boys match that was really good. It didn't involve tables or ladders. You know, I love the Hardy Boys, but it's a tough question, because when you think of the Hardy Boys, you think of all their ladder matches and all their tables matches and stuff like that. They do have good tag team matches, though. Like regular tag team matches. They had a really good Iron Man tag team match with the Bar during their run with WWE when they first came back. I enjoyed that match. I enjoyed all of the matches they had with the Bar. You know, but this is what people are conditioned to think that the Hardy Boys are, is that they're Team Extreme. It's like that was 20 years ago. 22 years. It's not 2000 anymore. They're not kids. You know? Like, we shouldn't be asking these guys to keep flying off ladders, keep flying through tables and jumping off shit. They're 45 and 48 years old. You know, like, they can't keep doing this. You know? Like, it's not going, you're asking for too much. You know, you could, you know, just use their star power to, you know, do little things. Work with these guys, man. Come on, cut them some fucking slack. He's only been in the company like a month, and you're already trying to put him in yet another no disqualification match? Damn, it's like this. It's almost like the no disqualification match is a crutch or something. Booker of the year. As far as Dynamites go, this was okay. I did enjoy Moxley versus Jay Lethal. It was my favorite match. The Elite thing was absolute cringe. Some of the promo segments were okay, but that stuff with Hangman Page and the Elite was very, very bad. MJF continues to be pretty good. Tony Storm was a flop debut. I felt bad for. Andrade and Darby was not bad. It wasn't awful. It was a worthy main event. The rest of the card, though, I couldn't have cared less about it. I couldn't have given a shit about most of that stuff, man. They got to do better. Dynamite needs more. They don't need more stars. They need better writing and better character building and better storytelling. You know, that's what they need. They need more story. Less of, you know, people in the ring working. But I do appreciate the limited commercials. I do appreciate that. I know they took it on the chin with that. This episode of Dynamite, probably another expensive episode of Dynamite. It featured CM Punk, Darby Allin, Well, CM Punk wrestled. Jericho was there. Danielson was there. Sting was there. All of their top guys that they spent a lot of money on, Christian, all of them made an appearance. So it was probably another expensive episode of Dynamite. And then they probably paid for limited commercials. So it was probably a very expensive episode of Dynamite. I'm guessing they're trying to bounce back that rating. You know, even though the ratings, the total viewership did go up, the 18 to 49, I think, took a hit last week. So they're trying to get that back up. This is something that TNA couldn't do because even though they were backed by a billionaire, he wasn't a complete total mark billionaire. They actually wanted to be able to sell ad space, but now, you know, Tony Khan's kind of like, fuck it, I'll pay for it. I want to play with my toys. Here's $50 to leave me alone. Or it's probably a little bit more than that. Probably here's $45,000 to leave me alone. And let me run through these commercials and stuff like that. And that would be probably per commercial break. So whatever. But I appreciate the limited commercial breaks. And that actually helped the show become more watchable. So that go. We was here for a long time, y'all. Appreciate everybody who made it this far. Thank you. Hit the like button. Make sure you hit that like button. I'll talk to you guys later, man. Peace.